Here's the blunt truth. He claims that we are going to suffer in hell until millennium. For Telestial, chapter 46, they will suffer until they have paid the price. But that's justice for unrepentant sin, then lower kingdom, not eternal fire. Mercy for all but sons of perdition. Doctrine and Covenants 76, 31 through 49. Here is another reality of truth when you go and you look at the idea, because you have to understand that majority of the early Christians were Jewish, and Second Temple Jewish teachings during the life of Paul and the life of the first century apostles, there was this connotation that hell was not actually an eternal form of punishment, that actually hell, and you can look at this at Rabbi Orr's teaching, that the righteous will go to Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden, and the unrighteous who violate Torah, the law, will go to Gehenna, and in Gehenna they will be spiritually purged. They will be cleansed from their unrighteousness and then welcomed into Abraham's bosom, or Gan Eden. And so even within a Jewish construct of an afterlife in Second Temple Jerusalem, Second Temple era, the afterlife from a Jewish perspective was not eternal punishment. This didn't come, again, another doctrinal invention, until centuries later, because you will not find the idea. In fact, majority of the time when Christ spoke on hellfire, he was speaking to a very real event that would occur in the generation, and that centered on the coming judgment and wrath being poured out upon them for, one, rejecting Christ, two, rejecting and murdering unaliving the prophets, and three, crucifying him. And that judgment, by the way, was a very historical reality. It happened in 70 AD during the Roman-Jewish War between 66 and 73 CE, and it was the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple thereof. And so judgment and hellfire, when you read the accounts, Josephus, the Jewish wars, you read Tacitus, you read all these historical accounts attesting to that. And coincidentally, we find this in Book of Mormon, 2nd Nephi. Guess what? Chapter 25, when Nephi receives revelation of the destruction of Jerusalem under the Babylonian captivity, and then the coming destruction of Jerusalem for rejecting Jesus Christ. So, even the Book of Mormon testifies to the reality of a coming judgment being poured out upon Jerusalem. That's just an interesting side note there to take. But here's the reality. We say we suffer in hell until millennium for telestial. This is not true. As for the lake of fire, outer darkness for the truly valiant in rebellion, not your average sinner. Those are reserved for the sons of perdition. And there's only two that we know of right now that may fit within that description. One is Cain, because he is considered the son of perdition, and in some instances may be the very father of lies and the murder from the beginning that Christ references when he challenges the Pharisees, saying, "You are of your father who is the devil, and the works he does you also do, for he was a liar and a murderer from the beginning." So Jesus is harking back to Cain. And in fact, Tertullian argues against the Cainite heresy with regards to baptism. So this is hard-hitting fact-checking for critics like Bill Young. Let's look at Matthew 7:21 through 23. I never knew you. He's speaking to false prophets. He's speaking to the religious leaders. We agree. No works without heart. However, there is Doctrine and Covenants, section 137, verse 9, where it says, judged by the desires too. Because you have to remember, when Christ challenged, and he says, is it not written that you shall not commit adultery? But I say unto you, that if a man looks upon a woman with lust in his heart, he has already committed adultery. So it begins within the heart. It begins within the mind. It begins within the way we think. And this is why Paul writes that we are to take captive every thought and bring it into obedience to the will and purpose of God. Oh, again, scripture, authority.